Hello everybody, Martin here, doing a replay of my round 3 match of this league, as unfortunately the audio got a bit messed up in the original recording, so doing it in the replay review section. So we're on the play, we get this hand, and it is a hand I decide to mulligan, because we're not really going anywhere with this hand. If we're up against something, we can discard if it's combo, but I just don't like the going nowhere-ness of this hand. It's not a terrible hand, like it's not something I would just, it's not an auto mulligan, but yeah. We get this hand, it's much better, I think. We decide to keep. And they also mulligan to 6. And they keep their 6, and we scry this to the top, because having a second cantrip is not the worst. So here I decide to lead on Probe, to decide whether or not to therapy or just cast a cantrip. It turns out they are on some kind of blue control deck, probably Miracles, but could be a kind of a Stoneblade deck, or could even be like the Esper Mentor deck. So we could therapy them here, but I don't think taking Jace really is the correct thing to do here. And taking either Brainstorm or Ponder just leaves them with the other, and so they can still dig for the stuff they need. Yeah, so I don't think I therapy them here. We just draw the Ponder off the Probe, and we cast a Ponder. We cast Ponder over Preordain here, in part because it lets us mask just for like a little bit who we are. We could be Grixis Delver here. Preordain is a pretty dead giveaway with its combo. So yeah, we don't want any of these cards, so we shuffle and draw a fetch land, which is, it's okay. So we shift the turn, and here they play a Tarn, and this was not in their hand, so they could have played out their Flooded Strand instead, but I guess they want to be able to fetch basic Island with this, and then basic Plains with a Strand, and they want to be able to Brainstorm in case we have discards, so I don't know. I'm not sure what's correct here. I guess they're totally respecting us being Delver because they're fetching around us having Stifle. I mean, they could also just be fetching because that's what they felt like doing, but I think that's a reasonable expectation. Okay, so here we draw Empty Lorns, and I think what we want to do is we want to cast one of our either Preordain or Therapy here, and then on the next turn just cast Cabal Ritual and T for 4. No, that's not good. It's not good at all. So I guess we Preordain, see if we can hit like a Probe or a Dark Ritual or both. We hit the Dark Ritual, so we bottom the Swamp, top Dark Ritual, and the next turn we can make like 6 to 8 goblins. Maybe more, depending on what they do on their spells. So they play out their Strand and pass the turn. And we draw, let's see here. We draw an LED, so that's another Storm. So we're definitely going for the goblins. We only lose really to Terminus if it is Miracles. And we have the Therapy, so that's really nice. So we lead off by therapying, and they Brainstorm in response. Understandable. And I think here we have to name Force of Will, because that stops us from casting our key first ritual. I mean, they could have like Spell Snare, obviously, or Spell Pierce. But I still think naming Force is probably correct here. And they are Miracles, so they have hidden one of their Jaces to not be double therapy, and they have Clique. and some nonsense cards, Entreat the Angels and Council's Judgment. So I think what we do here is we play out the MT, and them casting Brainstorm means we get 12 goblins, and then we flash back with the therapy and take their ponder, because it's the like most likely way they are finding a terminus. And this resolves. The stack is all the way over here for some reason. And, well, now it's pretty much terminus or bust. Like, they brainstormed, so if they found a terminus, they could have hidden it. We take their ponder. We don't really care about any of the other cards here. Clique lets them dig a card deeper, but by then it's too late. So let's see, if they fetch her, it's great, but they don't. And no terminus. So we get in for a bunch. 11 damage, and we brainstorm. Here we find like a ritual and a petal, but we want the therapy, so that's therapy. And here we name Mendelian Clique, and we flash it back, and here we can either name Jace or Council's Judgment. Like, the idea being, if Terminus is the second card down, which is the one they're going to draw now, then the game's going to keep going, and what is worse for us, losing our LED to a Council's Judgment or facing a Jace? And I think facing a Jace is worse, so we take it. So we leave them with Entreat the Angels and Council's Judgment, and lo and behold, Terminus was on the bottom, on the top of their library, so that's like very bad, obviously. But they are at 8. Unfortunately, we're sort of from locked. You know, the next two cards are a Petal and a Cabal ritual, so we just have to suck it up. Here, I think I thought they were going to take my my LED with the Council's Judgment, but they fetch a Volcanic, and instead they Snapcaster back a Ponder. So that's not unreasonable. They find a land off the Ponder, and we just pass it back. And they find Counterbalance, and they have a fetch land, but their hand is still Council's Judgment and Entreat the Angels, so that's good. And they shuffled off that Ponder, by the way. They got the Flooded Strand blindly off the Ponder. So they don't know the top of their library. So what do we draw here? Oof, Dark Ritual. So this is not so good. So now they are taking our LED, although that's not the end of the world, but it's not great. Yeah, they're taking our LED with our Council's Judgment, and their hand is Entreat the Angels blank. We draw Past in Flames, and that's really good. Depending on what's on top of their library, they don't know, we don't know. So if they have Brainstorm in hand, it's really bad, as their one blank. But I'm just going to go for it here, because you shouldn't be loitering around when there's a Counterbalance in play, because eventually they'll just find the top and it's game over. So they reveal, not the Terminus, that was from before. They reveal a Plains, so that's both good and bad. It's good because we get to flashback Past in Flames. It's bad because we don't get to cast our Petal, and then that means we can't make the second red mana, so we can't Past in Flames Empty the Warrens. What we can do is Past in Flames, lots of rituals, and we have a free probe and one of the blue cantrips off the Underground Sea to find a fetch land or the Badlands to make a lot of goblin tokens, or potentially just like an Infernal Tutor to grab tendrils. So all in all, a pleasant development. So we cast Dark Ritual, and it resolves, so I'm guessing they don't have Brainstorm or a meaningful counterspell. cast Cabal Ritual. They might have Spell Snare because more Miracles lists are running like a singleton Spell Snare these days, but they don't. So Cabal Ritual resolves, and we just cast the Past in Flames. And they concede, which is actually a little bit, like, I think, premature, because we don't have a kill locked up here. But I don't know if I can draw a card here. But I did. I drew a card in the top. Card was Polluted Delta. No, I can't. But anyway, so Probe would have shown Polluted Delta, which would have fetched Badlands. And we would have made a heap of goblins. But alright, so that was game one, and onto the sideboard, which I also can't show you, but I know what I cut and what I put in. I trimmed. Well, I put in 4 Decay and Empty the Warrens, Tendrils of Agony, and 2 Pithing Needles, so that's 8 cards. And I shaved Ad Nauseam, Chrome Mox, an LED, a Petal, an Infernal Tutor, a Preordain, a Ponder, and a Past in Flames. So that's my sideboard strat against Miracles. So on to game 2 on the draw. And we keep this hand even though it's very land light. But we have the Needle, which I really like, and we have some discard spells, and hopefully we'll draw out of the land screw. Having natural or like empty and tendrils is maybe a bit over the top, but actually no, I think 2 storm cards is fine. 3 in the hand, it gets a bit heavy against Miracles. They just go land, go. And we draw a land off the first draw step, so that's awesome. And here we decide to lead on Duress. Fetch Underground Sea. There's a world where we have to play around Blood Moon out of Miracles, especially with the Eldrazi deck being a thing, because most Miracles I think are running some sort of like Blood Moon, back to basics kind of thing out of their sideboard, but I don't think it's necessarily correct to bring it in against Storm anyway, so we lead on Duress here. We could lead on Needle naming Sensei's Top, but I'd rather do it this way. Get them to commit a Sensei's Top. So they show us this hand, and it's actually pretty strong against us, because they will get, we can only remove like either the, like one of the counterbalance or the engineered explosives. If we remove, if we don't remove the counterbalance, then they get to slam it next turn. We have decay, so it's not a big deal, but it does mean that if we want to therapy them before they get to Clique mana, and Clique is the scary card in this hand, then we need to hit, like cast therapy into the counterbalance. Because if we wait and decay, then they will probably get to 3 lands by then. And there's the engineered explosives, which is really bad for our Empty the Warrens plan. So I think I end up taking engineered explosives and then letting them counterbalance. And let's see here. Yeah, and here I decide to get the Trop and decay them, or I got the Trop out. It signals decay like really big, in a really big way. But if I didn't fetch and they drew a land here, then potentially they can, in response to me sacking the fetch land end of turn, they can Clique us and take out the counterbalance, the abrupt decay, which would be really bad. Also, the reason I didn't go for therapy is like if they miss, or if I hit on the counterbalance and get my therapy countered, then they get to Clique us and take the therapy, and then we actually don't have an answer to counterbalance. So I just had to get the counterbalance off. So luckily they didn't find a land, so they ponder here. So they don't have Clique open, and they did not shuffle. I remember this, so I found that a bit weird. Especially because they actually play a land next turn, so you'll see that that's a little bit weird. Why didn't they play a land here? But I guess it's because they, actually I don't know. So here we decay the balance. and we draw an LED, so that's not bad. So in a little while we can make some goblins, potentially. And here we decide to take their clique with the therapy. I mean, unless they do like brainstorm, but clique is like what scares us here. And okay, so they want to keep open Flusterstorm. Because yeah, I'm pretty sure on their next draw step they draw and play a land, and they didn't shuffle off the ponder, so they put the land second from the top. I guess that's because Flusterstorm was probably on top, so they were into those three, so they wanted that over having the second land, maybe the second land drop. But we get the clique, play out our land, and pass the turn. Still not playing the needle, though they have Jace, so we might need to. And there was that land. So here I think about like not pondering into that red blast, but on the other hand, like I think I might as well take it out of their hand. It has to go sooner or later. But actually they just let me ponder, so I don't know what they're saving the red blast for, but yeah, whatever. And here we actually want lands, so we just leave them this triple Scalding Tarn Ponder. Because it means we make a land, pass a turn, we can make another land, cast the needle, make the LED, and then empty for 6 goblins, which is not very strong, but it's not terrible either. Plus, they have Jace in hand, and that might be their sort of big play. None of their counter spells counter the needle, so we can needle Jace, and that seems pretty good. So they just do nothing, pass the turn, misarm their 4th land. So we don't shuffle here, we just draw the second Tarn, play it out, and sack them both. And we cast Needle. And Needle resolves, and we name Jace. And now we cast the LED, that resolves too, and we decide to just go for the empty. And 6 goblins is not insane or anything. So they Flusterstorm, and that means we have to sack the LED to pay, and we can only pay for 2 of the 3 copies, so it actually turns out we only get 4 goblins. And you could ask yourself, is 4 goblins going to be enough against miracles? So they draw Brainstorm. Well, as it turns out, 4 goblins is not enough against a Monastery Mentor. So, but they are at 16, and here I think I need to just get in for as much damage as possible. And yeah, just get them low. They rest in pieces here. Also, like, we could have therapied last turn, but there was no need. I value having the goblin. So yeah, the rest in peace is pretty big game against us here. Neuters 2 out of our 4 storm cards and gives them a monk. And this game is like, we drew a Cabal Ritual, we need to draw like tendrils ASAP. Or rather like a cantrip into tendrils would be ideal. Because they have, remember, they have Spell Snare for our Cabal Ritual. So they don't like here I thought they would have Pyroblasted something just to make a monk and take both, like 2 of our 3 guys. But they don't. This is probably a lost game, because now they do what? They slam Jace just to get a monk and a prowess trigger, and I think we're on the verge of conceding here. But we draw, what do we draw? Draw Probe, that's not bad. Like, this all hinges on us finding like tendrils, because I think that's all we have. here I think we just keep back. Oh, okay, no, never mind. We attack. So get in there, bring them down to 10, because that's actually, we're shaving a storm off the storm count. So now it's actually, like, if we draw tendrils, it's not at all impossible that we win. They don't cast any spells. Their hand is Pyroblast, Spell Snare, X. And X is Counterbalance, so it's not great. Well, that resolves. So we draw a probe. So here I think we wait maybe one more turn? Yeah, we don't attack here. We keep our goblin back to chump the mentor. And get one more draw step before like going for it. Draw a Dark Ritual, so yeah, well, I mean, the top two cards need to help us, and we need to not be screwed by Counterbalance. But we are, unfortunately, because they reveal Brainstorm. So, and that promises to concede. Alright, back for game 3. We choose to be on the draw here. And we get this very fine, acceptable hand. I've begun experimenting being on the draw against Miracles after sideboard, because as others have mentioned or noticed before me, like there's definitely a value to having an extra card. So they go strand go. We draw a Tendrils. So here we want to save our probe for Storm, and I think we want to lead on Needle this time. They just let it resolve without sacking their Strand, so it's really tempting to name Strand. But they could be doing this intentionally because they have Sensei's Top and they hope that I name Strand, so I end up naming Sensei's Divining Top. And just pass the turn. Alright, so we name Sensei's Top and shift the turn, and they draw whatever, just play a land, say go. So we draw Badlands, and I am tempted to fire off a Duress here just to see what's up. And then next turn maybe make some goblins. So they brainstorm in response, and then Duress resolves, showing us Clique and Rest in Peace. And a bunch of lands. So I'm happy I didn't name Flooded Strand with the Needle, because they have all these other lands. And we can only really take the Rest in Peace here. So they have Clique and 4 lands. And we don't play out our LED or anything here. Just play around the Clique. They fetch at end of turn, so they didn't like what they had on top. So now their hand is Clique 4 lands and whatever they draw blindly off the top of their library. So that's not very good for them. And we draw another land. So I think here we pass the turn, we play a land, pass the turn, and we make some goblins the next turn. I suppose it depends on what they do with their Clique. Alright, so they have drawn 2 cards we don't know about. We draw a Cabal Ritual here. So for us it's all about when do we, like how do we induce them to not Clique us at an inconvenient point in time. So it's really difficult to know if we should, like, do they Clique us in response to Cabal Ritual? If they don't, do they then Clique us in response to, like, not Probe, I'm sure, but like LED? Then we have the Tendrils, the MT, and whatever Probe has drawn us, so 3 cards they don't know about. Is that when they Clique us? If they don't, then we can make a lot of Empty the Warrants. But so I think I end up deciding to crack my fetches in advance, just so I don't get like clicked while I have a fetch land on the stack, so that'd be really annoying. And I decided to probe first because I'm just not sure. I want to know what they've drawn to make up my mind here. So they have drawn a Red Blast and a Supreme Verdict. So that's obviously a problem for our MT plan. Let's see what we draw here off the probe. We draw Past in Flame, so that's really nice. That will likely get us to where we need to be, because we can Flashback Duress, take their Supreme Verdict, and then need a lot of MT. So basically what we need to have happen here is them not click us in response to this diamond, and if they don't, then we're all good, because then we can cast the Cabal Ritual, and if they click us in response to that, we sack the LED, and then we don't have a hand, so their click can only click themselves. So, and they didn't, so we're golden. And in fact, I think I decided to just sack LED here because, like with Ritual on the stack anyways, because that gives the Ritual threshold. I think we might be able to just kill them with tendrils. So they sack their fetch and they click themselves, I think, here, because that's their only way. Oh, they don't, never mind, they wait. So we cast Past in Flames. And so we have a second red in case we need to make tendrils or empty. And we duress them here, and we take the Verdict. And we actually make a really big like mess up here. We should have definitely cast Cabal Ritual first, because now we don't have threshold. It will not matter, because let's see here. The tendrils is, we're at Storm 5. Probe is going to be Storm 6. Ritual Storm 7. So either we make 16 goblins, or they cast a spell, and I think they will. Whoops. I think they will most likely click us, so that that means we'll have lethal tendrils, but it's still like a mistake, nonetheless. But yeah, we take the Supreme Verdict since we can't take the tendrils or the click, and now we cast the Ritual, and having realized our mistake, so we get 2 mana less, but it's still fine. Now we probe, and they click. No, they don't click yet. We draw it like a tutor, and here I decide that tutor for Ritual means tendrils is also lethal, regardless of whether or not they cast anything. And if, let's say they click us, sorry, they click themselves. If they do that, then like they might find Flusterstorm, and if they do, then the tutor dies. But in that case, then also like whatever the tendrils or the empty the ones, they die too. So we lose to Flusterstorm off the top, regardless of whether or not we make the empty play, the 16 goblins, or the tutor for the kill. If they have Terminus on top, then the empty plan is also like we lose that, as well as them having engineered explosives that they showed us in game 2. So I actually like doing the tutor plan. That seems like what loses us the least. Although, I mean, they could also click into a spell snare. That would also be really bad. And we don't lose spell snare if we make the MT. So here we get a ritual that they let or the tutor, they don't click in response to that. We get a ritual, and now is when they click. Hoping to find Flusterstorm, I guess. They click themselves, and they bottom the Red Blast. Our ritual resolves, and so does a giant tendrils. So that is it. We got through the Miracle Hazard, and are now sitting at 2-1. And I'll try to do the last 2 matches tonight. Thanks a lot for watching.